Good morning. Welcome to Fargo. Glad you guys made it. And I know you're on a tight schedule because you have to be at Grand Forks by 11 or you have another meeting coming up to that. So this is the governor's meeting, so I'll turn it over to Governor Burgum and welcome back home.
Thanks, Mayor. Let me just start out by saying, sharing gratitude with all the folks that are here today. I know we've got, producers, we've got ag groups, we've got emergency personnel, we've got people here from the congressional delegations, and of course, joining us at the table, we've got a number of representatives from the state, city, and county. And our purpose today, we're going to hit Fargo, Grand Forks, Jamestown, Harvey, Fessenden today to try to get a firsthand look and assess the unprecedented situation that the state is in relative to fall flooding and early winter storms. And I guess the thing I would just start out, which everybody understands, I mean, North Dakota, we're quite good at dealing with floods in the spring, but when we do that, there's generally no crops in the field. But what we have right now is what's unprecedented about it is that we've got literally billions of dollars of agriculture value that is unharvested in the fields, and that's creates a risk potential for us, not just cities and people and infrastructure, but there's a economic hardship that is that we're facing here relative to this fall's harvest that is, like I said, likely unprecedented. In addition to, we'll go around the table here and have the folks that are here from the state of North Dakota that are traveling with me to do that. But of course, also pleased that throughout the entire day, we're going to have Ag Commissioner Doug Goring is here, as he and I have teamed up before whenever we have these emergencies in the state, and great to have his partnership along with that. Before we get started, there is one piece of news we'd like to share here, which is earlier this morning I signed a statewide flood emergency disaster declaration, and that's a formal step that we take at the state of North Dakota, which then paves the way to obtain federal assistance, including our pursuit of a USDA secretarial disaster declaration and a presidential disaster declaration. And of course, those that are familiar with that, which I see many people in the room are, know that there's a piece of accounting that goes with that, which is to qualify for that, we've got to make sure that counties, townships, state and cities and other organizations are submitting their information so that we can appropriately assess the amount of damage that we're undergoing so that we can qualify for the federal assistance. So with that, I want to, we'll start off with introductions here. I'm going to turn it over for a welcome remarks from Commissioner Goring. Then we'll introduce the folks that are at the table, and then after that, we're going to go to the county and then to the city for updates, and then we'll open it up to people in the audience after that. So, Doug?
Thank you, Governor. Good morning. It's good to see everybody. I just wish it was under different circumstances. This is a challenging time for many of our agriculture producers across the state. When I say across the state, it's pretty much southwest, northwest, all the way to the southeast and the northeast. It just so happens that probably in about 2/3 of the state, we've had an early blizzard that has certainly caused many more headaches and a lot of anxiety. And if you understand and put things into probably the proper context, when you think about the soybean crop out there, which is probably the crop I'm more concerned about given any other crop, maybe some dry beans out there, some potato production, and some sugar beets that haven't been harvested yet. We probably have in western Minnesota and in North Dakota about $2 billion worth of soybeans that are sitting in water or at least in conditions which may not allow producers to get out there and get them anytime soon. And that certainly causes a lot more stress, a lot more anxiety with our farmers. I know that many of them have been calling our office, talking to their insurance agents. And if I could say that one of the things I would strongly encourage you to do as a farmer is take a deep breath and hold on, because this is much like preventive planning. Until you hit that deadline date, you really can't turn in a loss. And trying to explain to your agent and the adjuster that you can't get out there really doesn't help you at this point, and there's nothing they can do about it. And that's probably where the greatest amount of frustration I hear from a lot of farmers is, I can't get out there because the roads are bad, they're underwater, maybe they're flooded, maybe the road washed out, or even if I get to the field, I can't drive in the field, much less harvest a crop in the water. And that creates a lot of problems. So I'm hoping that what we accomplish out of all this is an opportunity to listen to some of the concerns from our political subdivisions, our cities and counties, but also hear some of the concerns from the farmers as to what they're dealing with, and let's walk through this together. And also encourage a lot of them to utilize some of the services. If the 211 really helps, but also if you feel like you want to call and bend somebody's ear, you can call me too. That's been happening a lot. But we want to do as much as we can to help assess what the losses and the damages are out there, and then what the next steps will be. And I believe there's going to be some opportunities, well, especially for those counties that have been impacted by the blizzard, to qualify for WIP Plus. And I see Brad Dykeson is here from FSA, State FSA, and I thank you, Brad. I know we've talked several times in the last week and a half. And as we're able to pull some more information together, we'll be able to share that. But thank you for coming. I think it's going to be a good day to hear a lot of concerns from a lot of those officials across the state and from some of our producers. So with that, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Mahoney. Thank you, Bernie. Good to see you again.
Thanks. Thank you, Commissioner. General Dorman, we'll do quick introductions from the state, and then we'll turn it over to Chairman Sherling.
Yep, thanks, Governor. My name's Al Dorman. I'm the Director of Emergency Services for the state and also the Adjutant General for the North Dakota National.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Cody Schultz. I am the Director of Homeland Security for the state of North Dakota.
My name is John Piskowski. I'm the Assistant State Engineer for the North Dakota State Water Commission.
And my name is Reese Haas. I'm a Policy Advisor with the Governor's Office.
In addition to the four individuals that are up here, along with Commissioner Goring and myself, we've got a whole team of people across the state that will be activated as part of this work on our whole of government approach. So really you should think about any agency that can help will be helping, and we'll be coordinating all that through our the team that we put together to provide a statewide response. But with that, good morning.
Good morning, Governor. Thank you. Yes, well, things are changing rapidly in rural Cass County, and we're prepared for whatever will occur. But at this point, the flooding on the Cheyenne and Maple Rivers will significantly increase this week as Monday's rain runs off into the river systems. As of today, the rivers are at their lowest points in the last few weeks. But residents should not let these low levels make them complacent. With today's rain and significant releases coming out of the Bald Hill Dam, the Cheyenne River will be at a major flood stage in both Harwood and Kindred by the end of the week. These levels are expected to remain high for the next several weeks. Most areas in Cass County shouldn't expect flooding to be serious enough to impact homes. However, homeowners along the Cheyenne River near Kindred or north of West Fargo should evaluate their flood risk, as last spring there was quite a bit of flooding in those areas. We do have 30,000 sandbags available at the county, and I think the city's got several more if we needed to borrow some. The Cheyenne River at Harwood is expected to reach 90.8 feet by Friday, or just 1.2 feet below the record 92 feet. At this level, areas from north of West Fargo to north of Harwood will experience overland flooding and flooded roads. And at these levels, Cass County highways 17, 20, and 22 may be flooded. The Cheyenne River at Kindred is expected to crest at 20.4 feet by Thursday, right at major flood stage, just 2 feet below the record 22.3 feet. Areas along the Cheyenne River from Kindred to Horace may experience overland flooding and flooded roads. The Maple River at Mapleton will be cresting on Thursday at 20.4 feet or 3 feet below the record. We continue to see significant inflows into the Maple River Dam west of Leonard, and the dam is currently holding back 32 feet of water in storage. The gauge base reading is 1,000 feet, and the top of the emergency spillway is 1,048 feet. The current gauge reading is 1,032 feet. Fortunately, we are expecting only minor flooding on the Red River, Wild Rice River, and Rush River. But these numbers are just really surprising to be reading in the middle of October. So this is really unprecedented for us. With today's rain, we expect additional overland flooding may occur with high water in ditches and drains. At this time, no Cass County roads have been overtopped or impacted by the fall flooding. However, we did have a bridge abatement washout on the Wild Rice River. Residents are encouraged to remain vigilant if flood conditions change, and while traveling in areas with overland flooding or while driving in areas where township roads have experienced washouts. I know our sheriff was involved in a rescue, I think it was last weekend. That's pretty dangerous to end up with your car in a ditch and you're up to your neck in water this time of year. Residents with flood questions should go to casscountynd.gov or our flood hotline at 701-241-8000. Starting on Monday, the flood hotline will be answered from 8 to 5 p.m. Overall, Cass County gravel roads are in pretty good shape. With the wet conditions, many township gravel roads and especially minimum maintenance roads across the county are in poor condition. We encourage people to drive on only improved gravel roads and limit travel on the dirt and minimum maintenance roads. Township roads are needed for getting crops off the field, and it's important that we limit damage while they are under such wet conditions. And we are prepared to declare a disaster at this afternoon's County Commission meeting. And I have with me Jason Benson, our county engineer, if you have any specific questions about any of these road conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. And I know when you're saying record, you're comparing those to record spring floods, because I think these are all records,
Yeah,
as you noted, for October.
Correct.
Jason, anything you want to add?
Thank you, Governor. Commissioner Sherling really covered it all, but like you said, it's really unprecedented for this time of year. And I think the key message is for those folks that are driving along the Cheyenne River and Maple River right now, they may seem like they're low compared to last week, but they're going to jump rapidly with this as this rain gets into the system.
Okay. Mayor Dardis, West Fargo, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Governor. Nice to be here. Commissioner Goring, nice to see you. West Fargo is in full spring flood fighting mode right now in October, which is unprecedented. But at the present time, the diversion, the West Fargo diversion, the Horace diversion is in full operation. All applications that normally pertain to spring flooding are in operation right now, plugging culverts, everything. Our team is doing a great job. We do caution the residents along the Cheyenne River to continue to monitor their individual riverbanks and their diking. It's awfully wet out there and it's awfully heavy, and there could be rapid sloughing or something like that. So we would caution any residents along the Cheyenne River in the city of West Fargo to continue to monitor their backyards. Feel free to call the city if there's any issues that you need help with. I'd like to commend my fellow mayor here. Your calling this meeting, Governor, is fantastic, but the help that Fargo gave Jamestown last week is just a shining example of how we're all in this together. And so when one has a problem, we all have a problem. And so my compliments to the city of Fargo.
Thank you, Bernie, as always. I have two people to give a report, Tom.
And if I was to say, if people are not familiar to what Mayor Dardis is referring to, Fargo, was it 40,000 sandbags, 30,000 sandbags you loaned to the city of Jamestown?
Yes, we did. They came over on Thursday, picked them up. Our team helped out, and I'll have Ben Dow talk about that, and Tom Mockmoose will talk about what we're doing in town right now for the flood fight we do have, in which the river is out of its banks right now. So Tom, if you want to start.
I think Ben might know a little bit better than I do. You know, a lot of what we're doing is just more of our lower impact emergency measures that Public Works typically does handle. So I'll start with Ben.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Governor, for being here today. Thank you for everybody and their hard efforts in this spring flood event. In Fargo, we are sitting in pretty good shape because the moisture hasn't been as extreme as we've seen north of us. We do have flooding going on with our Elm Street closure. We've activated 12 of our lift stations throughout the city, so we are on pumping power so that if we do see another additional 2 inches of rain, we might see some street flooding going on because we're taxed with the amount of moisture that's out there. Our staff is ready to go. We started closing everything and locking everything down last Saturday, and we will continue as the river rises. Our river did peak over the last weekend a little bit and came down, but as we see additional rain accumulation, we're going to see it pop back up. That's one thing we are seeing is these rivers rise very quickly because there is no room in the soil to handle any more moisture. So that is a scary part of this. Usually we have some time. In these cases, we don't have a lot of time. As far as Jamestown, we had a successful loading campaign on Thursday and Friday with them. The drivers were very professional, really good people. We worked hard to get them loaded and out, and they were very excited to receive the sandbags from us.
Any questions from the Team ND for Cass County or City of Fargo or West Fargo? Any other comments from officials here at the table?
Well, spring flooding usually is a lot higher, so fall flooding is unusual for us, but we're well prepared for this one unless we get continued rain or continued issues, so we feel well prepared. We do feel the county's going to have some struggles. Jason always has a little trouble in the low-lying areas out there. And I think Commissioner Gehrig, the other issue you had talked about is ag is really suffering right now because they can't get the crops off, so we're very concerned about that.
We're also continuing to monitor the water being released from Bald Hill, the amount of water that's coming through on the Cheyenne, obviously going to come through our diversion. So we're very concerned about that and the longevity and the amount of time that water is going to be on us.
Well, good things to pay attention to. I mean, because I think we know there was a part of the storm event really hit the upper reaches of the Cheyenne, and all that's got to come down through Lake Ashtabula, and of course those releases, as noted by Commissioner, increasing, and of course it doesn't get here, but we're also putting out record fall releases on Pipestone and Jamestown, Pipestem and Jamestown. So we got water, you know, a lot of water from the center part of the state, and some of it, not all of it's coming here, but some of it's coming here through the Cheyenne. And then when Commissioner Goring's talking about worrying about soybeans, it may have kind of snuck up on some people that, you know, that grew up in North Dakota when we weren't a big soybean producer, but the last 2 years running, Cass County was the largest soybean producing county in the nation, not just in North Dakota, but in the nation. And of course, as the Commissioner said, billions of dollars of crop value. And of course, we know that there's a huge amount of value of sugar beets that are still out there. As of this last weekend, I don't know, is there anybody here from Crystal Sugar? Or any growers here? Because from conversation with growers, they weren't even at the 40% mark for harvest, and if the growers don't get 40% of the crop in, that's what it's taken to get the break-even point. So if it's below 40% harvested, then farmers are paying Crystal Sugar a check instead of the other way around in the way the co-op works. That's never happened before, but a lot of anxiety with the sugar beet growers out there as well. Okay, so let's, we're going to open it up to the folks. I see we've got, as you said, we've got folks here from USDA. I see Extension here. We've got producers that are here, emergency management personnel. We'd love to hear from anybody. This is a listening session, so it doesn't have to be formal remarks. We're here to listen and learn. So if you got something you think that would be helpful to the state, the county, or the cities, it's a good time to share it. And Mayor, where's the best place for them to approach a microphone?
You can go to either mic. They're both live. So
either the podium. So, and feel free to start queuing up so we can move things along here. But we'll start in the listening session. But or if anybody, anyone from the CODEL wants to say a few words as well that are representing those offices, feel free. But we'll open it up to public comment. And don't all run over yourselves getting there. It'd be like... And if you could, say your name and where you live and what else you know. And we've also got a microphone. I see a roving microphone in the audience too, so you can start at the podium, but if others want to raise your hand, you can just stand up and speak from your seat too, if that's easier. But thank you, sir, for being a leader.
You bet. Thank you for being here and for listening. My name is Ken Pollock. I live in Fargo. I sit on the board of Southeast Cass Water Managers and also on the joint board for Cass County on the Water Resource Districts. And I see that we don't have the Army Corps of Engineers here at the head table, and maybe they're here in the audience, but the actions of the Army Corps really are impacting a lot of what's happening right now. And maybe things are being managed as well as they can be, but sometimes it seems like there's disregard for for the plight that is putting a lot of the public in. And I just think it's a glaring absence if they're not here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Who's next? Raise your hand or approach the microphone.
Hi, thank you to everyone for being here for this listening session. My name is Sarah Levis. I'm a farmer from Trail County near Hillsborough, North Dakota. I raise wheat, corn, soybeans. I'm also an independent crop consultant in that area, and I do work with sugar beets. Thank you, Governor, for your comments about the sugar beet crop. Those farmers in my area, for anyone on social media, there was a lot of pictures about sugar beet harvest over the last weekend when it was relatively dry. The guys in my area weren't able to dig. So the pictures you saw were from the quote-unquote dry areas. We are fortunate on our farm that we have had 2 days of soybean harvest so far, and I do consider myself very lucky for both of those days. We are approximately 9.1% done with soybean harvest at that, and so, and I'm feeling, again, very lucky that we are that far into our harvest, which is unprecedented for us. Within that, there's a lot of issues that we're going to be facing. The economic issues that we're facing are very real because the difficult weather issues that we're facing are coupled with very low commodity prices. We were fortunate on our farm that we did get all of our small grains harvested. There's a lot of small grains in Trail County that have not been harvested at all. There's no cash flow coming off of those for those farmers, and those farmers that I work with as an agronomist, I'm recommending them not to worry about harvesting that wheat at this point in time, or barley, because they need to worry about getting their other crops that have a better value for their farm. So within that, cash flow issues are becoming very real for the farms at this point in time. We were depending upon checks coming in and money flowing, and that's not happening. One thing that could also help us, and this may be more of a national issue, is maybe moving some of our crop insurance dates back. I'm aware that that has happened with some commodities, but it is something that we could help us have a safety net if we need to be harvesting some of these crops through the winter. Obviously, there's some crops that, sugar beets, for example, once they freeze in the ground, they will not be harvested. They will be lost. Infrastructure will be another thing that we need to keep in mind. I'm pretty fortunate in my area right now that we have, our roads aren't in great condition, but I don't think they're as bad as they are in some places because we're not harvesting. Once the harvest traffic goes, our roads will get beat up very badly. Not only do we need our roads in shape to get our crop off this fall, we need to remember that we're going to be facing a very challenging planting season. Right now, I hate to even bring this up at this point in time because a lot of farmers are under stress, but we may have significant challenges getting our 2020 crop planted. Assessing the loss from where we are right now. I think there's parts of North Dakota where we can assess the loss from snowfall. I also think that there's a lot of the loss that we don't understand yet. I was very fortunate that our second day of soybean harvest was on Saturday. During that day of harvest, and we did not combine on Sunday because we were out of quote unquote dry acres, but there was 25 acres that were not harvested because they were under river water. I am concerned about one field in particular on my own farm that will not be harvested this year or might not be harvested because we will not be able to get there from the Goose River. Farm stress. There's been some some things brought up about farm stress and mental health of farmers. To anyone out there, the local churches, the government, and the Extension Service, thank you for supporting farmers and farm stress. It's an issue. Anything that we can do to support farmers at this point in time, just from that standpoint, is well appreciated. So thank you for that. And lastly, let's not stop these conversations. As I alluded to earlier, spring of 2020 is coming. We're all gonna wanna get our crop planted at that point in time. I don't know if it's going to be possible right now. We're all gonna hope for a warm, dry winter and that, everything's gonna shape up. It might not happen. As we sit right now, our soils are very saturated. So thank you for your time, I appreciate it.
Thanks, Sarah. A couple things I would mention. You're absolutely right about the roads, and it seems to be in a large portion of the state that many of those roads are soft. And then when you think about the minimum maintenance roads that a lot of our agriculture producers use to get to their fields, those are really in tough shape. It's probably one of the reasons that I put out a press release a while back. After the blizzard had started, we had some that were out, let's just say, enjoying the snow on snowmobiles, and they were driving across fields that were unharvested. Not only that, there were a few out there looking around, and as much as we love the sportsmen in our state and their ability to go out and harvest a lot of those the wildlife that sometimes cause depredation in many of our crops, those minimum maintenance roads are in tough condition, and any more travel on them certainly compromises that. The issue about the harvest date, deadline dates, moving them back, that's a real challenging one. There are different schools of thought on this. If you go to the harvest deadline date, at that point you can get that crop adjusted. They'll come out and they'll assess what they believe the crop is going to be, discounting whatever damage there is. But if you move that deadline date to a later date, that may or may not work for you. And the challenge with that is you may not have a good correlation of what you can actually harvest and what you can't. That's a catch-22, and we're going to have to be really careful about how we move forward if we request that. You're right on sugar beets. They're in the ground. Once it freezes, you're pretty much done, just like some of our potato producers. But it's going to be difficult getting into the 2020 years you talked about. If we have unharvested crop, generally that's uneligible for prevent plant the next following year. We really need to look at exhausting all options before you call your agent and say, I have unharvested crop out here. But there's a lot of things to consider there, and I respect that. We're going through the same thing. I got about 1,800 acres of soybeans and corn to harvest on my place, and we got 4.5 inches last night on some of that, so it was already underwater in some places. I think it's really underwater now. Thank you. Brad.
Yeah, Governor and Commissioner. Brad Tickerson, North Dakota State FSA Director, and being Sarah turned it to the ag sector or whatever, last Tuesday, we convened the county emergency boards to poll their counties of a crop production loss. Once we get to a 30% production loss, then we're able to ask for that secretarial disaster declaration, which then opens up emergency loans for these producers. Currently, we have 37 counties in North Dakota. So when we talk about a statewide issue, 37 counties as of Friday compiled that we do have a 30% loss in those counties, so those would qualify. We have 6 that haven't reported, and we have 9 deferrals and 1 what they call a credit survey that would go on, but that'll mature as time goes on here. So what we're dealing with is, just as what Sarah said, is that we're having these producers that definitely do have losses, but on the same token, we have that crop out in the field that's unharvestable, which puts us into this cash flow crunch that I think This is going to be felt by all our cities, all our counties, and it's something that we have to start putting our heads together with the talking and listening sessions in order to come up with ways to get these producers to past, you know, and when Sarah says 2020 in jeopardy, absolutely. There's no fertilizer getting put on. There's no infrastructure. All that's going to build to next spring, and we can't do all that work, and we can't get all that product out to the fields and put into the ground for turning this around in 1 year. So we're in for the long haul. So let's keep that in mind too.
Thank you. Yeah, just a note on that fertilizer, I've talked to some folks where some counties, 65% of the fertilizer might be fall applied, and we're at 0. And so then if we're at 0, then that creates supply chain issues, you know, back in terms of having enough supply next spring and the time and the field conditions to actually get it on. And without fertilizer, we know we aren't going to get the crop or the yields next year. So Sarah's point and yours well taken that we're really stacking up for creating challenges for next year. Another comment, so right there.
My name is Jennifer Illig. I'm the director of First Link 211. So thank you for referring people to call 211. First Link is a nonprofit agency. We're located in Fargo, North Dakota. We answer the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline and the 211 helpline with our service area, the entire state of North Dakota and parts of Minnesota. People can simply dial 211 for 24-hour, free, confidential listening and support. We also have a database of resources, so we can link people to financial resources. Probably not $2 billion worth of financial resources, but we can help people get through their crisis. So thanks for their shout out. In this room, if you want to help out First Link, go to our social media and just like and share our pages so people know that 211 is out there and that they can call us anytime. Thank you.
Thank you for being here, and Sarah, thanks for bringing up the farm stress. It's a real deal, and I think folks that aren't farmers or ranchers have a hard time understanding that these entrepreneurs, the farmers and ranchers, put up all the cash in the spring, and then now they get paid at the end of the year. And if there's no opportunity to get paid, I mean, it's like any other business, but that's taken all that risk, but has had no revenue the entire year. But only you compound that with the pressures from multi-generational land ownership and small towns and sometimes no one to talk to. So keep talking to each other, or as they say, call 211. But it's a real deal, and we want to take care of each other and take care of our neighbors during this time of incredible stress. Other comments?
Governor,
thank you.
Charlie Stolteno, Assistant Director for NDSU Extension. Thank you for the comments on farm stress. And thank you for collaboration. I just wanted to bring up a part of, you're not hearing it here, but you're going to hear it as you get farther west, the domino effect. What wasn't mentioned is the impact on livestock, as being the livestock extension veterinarian for 17 years. We did some work of survey work this past week, and 95% of our silage supply has not been harvested yet. One of the contractors I know has 34 clients in North Dakota. He's only been able to service 8 of those. That means there's at least 26 to 28 of his clients alone that they have not been out there yet. The other thing, some counties are reporting half the hay supplies underwater, and then also not being able to even put up hay. So right now, in a 30 to 60-day outlook, we do have adequate feed supplies. However, depending on how things happen, when the freeze up is, you could be looking at a severe hay shortage, feed shortage this winter. So just to be prepared and be thinking along those lines also. This is devastating.
Thanks, Charlie. In fact, I need to recognize a few people. I appreciate all the work that's been going into this from NDSU Extension. Charlie, I know you've been key and part of that, also working with Brad and FSA and Department of Emergency Services and Homeland Security. Thank you guys for all your help and efforts in that. Got a little bit of jet lag right now, so I'm still trying to piece this week together, or last week. But it is important. I did have several producers that did call and say that they were just a month behind putting in silage this year and putting the silage up. And that is going to be a real issue. It might be almost as bad as the drought we dealt with we're gonna have a lack of feed supplies out there, and to that point that in a lot of those hay meadows, that water is up, and they can't access them until it does freeze, which means then, when you do, you're only gonna pull part of the bale out of the field, if you can even get there. So at this point, I hope that National Weather Service predicts an open winter, but cold enough so the ground freezes, which I'm sure it will be cold enough for the ground to freeze. It's just how much snow are we gonna deal with?
Other comments? See, we've got some other producers in the room, other folks that want to share just anecdotal information from their farms. Happy to hear from that too, but sir?
Yeah, Sean Brotherson, NDSU Extension, Family Life Specialist. Just thanks, Jennifer, for mentioning the farm stress resources associated with FirstLink. There's a lot of resources statewide. With the kind of educational resources on stress and health management we're providing through NDSU Extension, you can just search NDSU Farm Stress. It's the first page that comes up. We have a lot of resources on there. And I think some of you may or may not know that from 1999 to 2016, about a 20-year period, the state of North Dakota was #1 in the nation in terms of suicide increase. And we know a lot of that has occurred in our rural areas, some in our agricultural population. And when I get those calls in my office, I think some of you have had those too. And so I would just emphasize the importance of, there's a lot of things in this situation that are beyond your immediate control to manage. But of all the resources on a farm or ranch operation, the most important is your health. Your health, you have land, you have livestock, you have seed, you have a lot of other things, but your health is what allows you to function on your farm operation. It allows you to connect in your family relationships, allows you to make the decisions you make in your business. And so I just really encourage people to remember that of all the things we prioritize, your individual health on a daily basis and the health of those relationships where you gain support is the most important. It needs to be a top farm management priority. And there are a lot of resources, even though there tends to be more limited access to mental health services in rural areas. Many of our providers across the state, nonprofit providers like Lutheran Social Services, have telehealth counseling. They have our regional human service centers, our behavioral health centers with Sanford and other institutions that have networks across the state that are very focused on this. I know that there's a major faith community meeting tomorrow morning here in Fargo that I'll be at that is addressing this. And so would just encourage people to reach out to those resources. People do want to be helpful and they do want to listen. So thank you.
Great reminder, thank you. And do you want to say one more time what the NDSU Extension website is for the?
Farm stress, and it comes up as the #1 thing.
NDSU Farm Stress.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Other comments?
I'm Dan Spiegelmeyer. I'm a farmer from Ransom County, Sheldon area. As far as weather scenarios that could happen, we don't know what's best for us to happen to going forward. The best thing, I guess, is to not have any more precipitation would be the best, but we would need a hard freeze to get on over some of this ground that we can't get on right now. But we also need to get rid of some water in our waterways and our sloughs and our natural drains. Otherwise, this water freezes up in our culverts and our drains and stuff. It's really going to compound the problem for 2020 planting, and our roads are going to be really washed out. Our township roads are already underwater in a lot of places where we have some natural drains. Their culverts aren't sized properly in some of these systems, and they're really backing up onto our land personally. We just don't know what's going to be the best scenario to happen for us, but we appreciate you guys getting out in front of this a little bit. It helps a lot to figure out, I'm also a volunteer firefighter, and we're going to be doing some sandbagging, I'm sure, in our local communities. Hopefully no water rescues. That's one thing that scares me, is having to be in charge of doing something like that. don't want to have to call Valley Water Rescue for somebody that's put a car or a vehicle or maybe even a combine in the ditch because we're traveling over roads that are going to give out on us. So with that, thank you.
Thanks for the comments, and thanks also for your service as a volunteer fire. Appreciate it very much.
Something I was going to say, Governor, if we can encourage a lot of our producers, and I've been there, done it, still doing it. It's difficult when you're dealing with these type of conditions, whether it's prevent plant because of excessive moisture, or now excessive moisture and preventing you from getting out there and harvesting. At least during a drought, you're always busy. But the worst thing that the farmers deal with now is you're sitting around and you're waiting. And if you are outside doing something, you're cold, you're wet, you're miserable, you're probably working on equipment, smashed your hand. It takes a toll. You're dealing with it mentally, emotionally. You have the financial worries. And on the physical side, it just starts to wear you down. And I know one of the toughest things for our farmers to do is probably talk to their loved ones, because the last thing they want to do is stress them out. They can already sense it on you. And you feel like you don't want to put that burden on them. But please talk to your loved ones, your family. I know that it seems sometimes you want to go to your ag suppliers or maybe even to your banker, and it's good to visit with your banker. But understand they can probably be sympathetic to a point, but you really need to reach out to those others that can help you in this situation. So if you're not talking to your family members, you're not talking to those that are close to you, your friends, please use 211, use your local affiliations, church, and other organizations that can at least help. They can listen and offer some guidance and support. It is difficult, but we don't need another travesty in your community, in your household, or in this state.
Governor, my name is Tom Brusegard. I'm a regional director for United States Senator John Hoeven. I work out of Grand Forks, but I do statewide ag policy. On behalf of our office and Senator Hoeven, I know Senator Kramer, Congressman Armstrong are represented here as well. I would just point out that farmers should never hesitate to reach out to our offices when they're experiencing challenges. We might not always have the right answer immediately available, but we can usually get you in touch with people who do. Brad at State FSA and his county staff are doing a great job so far trying to collate the damage and the assessments that are out there. That information will be sent to Secretary Perdue in hopes of some sort of secretarial disaster declaration. That would open up some resources in terms of emergency loan program, things of that nature. There's also available to people who farm in counties that have been declared a disaster already, a presidential declaration. They would have perhaps some access to a program called WIP Plus. I would encourage farmers who've experienced large losses over and above their crop insurance indemnity to reach out to county FSA staff and ask to go through the forms and the process of filling that out in hopes that maybe there's some assistance there as well. I know our office and the other offices are all, our numbers are in the book on the web, and if you do have questions about the federal government, don't hesitate to reach out and ask. Governor, thank you for putting this meeting together. Commissioner Goring, I appreciate your work on this, and we'll be in touch, I'm sure.
Thank you for the comments, and thanks to Senator Hoeven, and Senator Kramer, and Congressman Armstrong. We truly appreciate their partnership, and we know they're going to be a steadfast in making sure we secure whatever federal assistance we can. Yes.
Hello, my name is.
Go ahead and stand. Thank you.
I don't like standing, but okay. My name is Catherine Fink. I just moved here from Grand Forks, North Dakota. I'm working for Lutheran Social Services of North Dakota in disaster case management. Strange timing. As I was moving, I was actually asked to be part of the COAD in Grand Forks, and was looking at what was working and what wasn't working as far as a community, and what that committee does to help. And I'm wondering, I guess this is more of a question than a comment, but I'm wondering if there is a space in Fargo through the city that has a list, maybe could create a list of all of these resources for farmers. Because I know Lutheran Social Services, we step in when we can. We always have grant monies, we use at the end of each disaster. We kind of step in and do the case management part. We also try to collect that information from places all over North Dakota, who are the underserved population, how they've been affected, and what they're looking for. There's a lot of people that don't know how or where to connect the dots and who to go to, and sometimes just take that loss. But especially folks that are elderly, that don't have family around, things like that, or don't have any insurance or underinsured, there are spaces where a lot of NPOs can step in. And I'm wondering, as a new community member, this is good for me too, to learn how to work with one another and make this a strengthened piece when in preparedness and in recovery.
Commissioner?
I was just wondering, I see Rita's back there with Extension. Do we have any resource like that we can share with her? Wonderful, thank you.
And then when you're having that state meeting tomorrow, can you connect with General Dorman and Cody? Because we've also got, we've stood up ndresponse.com, which is our statewide website for emergency related stuff, and we can make sure that we've got all the right links on the statewide site that connects back to everything that you guys are putting up. You guys got that? Anything to add? Or?
No, Governor. We were aware of the meeting next week. I'll reach out to Chris Jones at Human Services too and talk about where can we get this information so it's intuitive or at least marketed. Here's where you can go to get the help. This is a big deal, but I would just encourage everyone, if you think someone is suffering, if they're under incredible stress, sometimes the hardest thing to do is to engage somebody when you feel ill-prepared to engage with them. And everyone that's actually trained on this, nod your head if I got this right. But I would encourage you all, if someone is under stress and you are concerned about them, you need to reach out, you need to ask the question. We follow a process in the military called ACE, which is ask, care, and escort. So you ask them how you doing. If you don't get the answer you want, you keep asking questions until you're comfortable that they're doing okay, or if they're not doing okay, the next step is care, and that's to listen and find out what the problem is, and then escort them. And if you don't have the resource you need, I always tell folks, just keep moving. Get them to their pastor, get them to a friend, get them to a social worker, give them to a human services center, but just keep moving, keep in contact with them, and get a warm handoff to somebody that can help them. We need to work at the county level, state level, to make sure we identify these resources so you can tap into them when you need it. But we really got to look out for one another. And again, if you feel ill-prepared to have this conversation, I would encourage you to have the courage to have the conversation. Because I can tell you from my own experience in the National Guard, we have saved people over the last 2 years. Just by folks engaging, asking that question, caring, and then escorting them to someone that can give them the help they need. So just leave that with you. Highly encourage you to make sure we have those engagements.
Thank you, General. We got time for a couple more comments. So I guess see two up here, one at the podium and then one in the back.
Hello, I'm Tara Cavett, and I'm here from the Southeast Human Service Center in town, Fargo. I just wanted to let everybody know about some emergency types of services that we do have at Southeast. If an individual calls, for instance, First Link, they can be connected to Southeast 24 hours a day. We do provide phone support and outreach support, so if somebody needs a risk assessment, so a concern about suicidal ideation, or counseling services, we are able to provide those. In addition to substance use services, sometimes those go hand in hand. Also, we do have what's called open access, and that's 7 days a week, Monday through Friday. We are able to see individuals. Individuals can meet with somebody in triage, and if they need an assessment at Southeast, we can provide them with services that day and get them connected. I do have brochures here if anybody has questions. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Governor, for being here today, and Commissioner Goring, and all of you that are here to offer your words of advice and comments in this listening session. My name is Lisa Gibbons. I'm the State Director for Senator Kramer, and also here is Jeff Frostbank, who is the State Director for Congressman Armstrong. And we just want to reiterate what Tom Bursegard said from Senator Hoeven's office, that we are available, ready to listen, take your concerns, work with Brad Tickerson from FSA. So just so you know, all 3 Codell offices are here and available, and so please reach out to us if there's anything we can be of assistance.
And I would just add, thanks to the Governor's office and Commissioner Gehring's office for the communication with our DC team too, just keeping us all informed on how everything's going. We really appreciate the communication, and for all farmers, we're always here. You know, let us know how we can be helpful too, and thanks to Brad Tickerson too. So thank you.
Okay, I think we're nearing the end of our time for formal comments, but let me just close by saying one thing that's always been completely clear about North Dakota is North Dakota deeply cares about its people, its neighbors, and that was certainly obvious here from all the comments that were made. But I should also say that I also know growing up in a farm community, and a number of my best friends from high school are still farming out there. And I can see some fraternity brothers here from farming. We're fortunate, we're blessed to have some of the most hardest working, most productive, most effective farmers and ranchers in the world right here in North Dakota. And if there's a way to get this crop off, these folks are going to figure out how to get it done. I mean, we know that because we've got true innovators and entrepreneurs out there. They're going to figure out to make it done. So they got a lot of the stress, but I also know there's folks that are out there that are approaching this the way they have through all the decades they've farmed in their life, and they're approaching it with an understanding that there's some things they can control and some things they can't. Can't control the weather, so focus on the things you can control. That led to a few comments when I was in Arthur last week. They said, I don't know what I'm going to do this winter because I got all my winter projects done already. And because somebody else said I saw the back of 2 sheds that I hadn't seen for 30 years. So I know that when they can't do field work, they're doing things to move their operations forward, and some of them with very good spirits. And I know those are the ones that'll reach out and maybe help some of the younger farmers, people without not as strong a balance sheet, people that are going to be more stressed going through this because not everybody's affected the same way. But I just want to give a shout out to all of the great farmers and ranchers in our state that are not only doing their work but looking out for their neighbors, because that's we know we're blessed with that. So kudos to all of them, and thank you all for being here this morning. There's plenty of contact points for follow-up. I said this. Thank the Mayor Dardas, Mayor Mahoney. Chairman Sherling, thank you for being here, and all the engineering teams. And I say we're off to do the same thing in 4 other locations. So we'll be on our way, but I'm sure the community leaders that are here and the Codell staff and others that are here will be available to answer questions afterwards. But we're on the road. Doug, any closing comments?
No, I would just say I encourage you to please reach out to your community leaders, those faith-based organizations, any other organizations you feel that would just listen. I think one of the biggest challenges that we have is when you show up, you want to help people. And really, we don't have a whole lot to offer right now, other than we can listen, continue to pull information together, and in time, we'll have some more answers that we can give you.
And relative to, I think it was Ken, one of the first comments, I don't see that the Corps of Engineers is here, but we are in regular contact with them and will continue to be in regular contact with the Corps. And then, of course, also deeply involved here. We had a lot of discussion on roads, but NDDOT and the leadership is deeply involved relative to the state stuff, and then also making sure that we're working with the counties to make sure, because without roads we can't get this crop off. So definitely they're also deeply involved in the statewide work that we're doing. Okay, and also, we got Water Commission here. John didn't get any specific questions, but we are dealing with the flood issues around the state and taking care of that. And if you say, as Doug said, it is state. When we were at the new airport opening 2 weeks ago in Williston, we're driving in there was standing water in fields driving into the Williston Airport, which is 7 miles northwest of Williston, in October. I mean, there's not standing water on that field generally in May or June, much less October. So it is, we're living in a world of some things we haven't seen before across the whole state. And we did have roads underwater up there in that part of the state too. But anyway, thanks everybody for being here, and appreciate all the inputs, and for the folks that are to do this for a living, FSA Extension, and all the folks that are involved in human services. Thanks for being here. Thanks for reaching out, and we'll keep doing it the way we do in North Dakota, working together as a team, everybody working to do the best we can to help our neighbors. So thank you.